What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Punching Up. I am your host, Maya May, and apparently Christian nationalism has hit prime time. People are actually starting to talk about it because once we had that Charlie Kirk Memorial meets UFC competition, pyrotechnics, I think people are starting to pay attention, which is why I am so excited about today's guests for Punching Up. We have Tim Whitaker and April Ajoy. They're the hosts of the Tim and April show, produced by their own org, New Evangelicals. Now, you've seen Tim on the show a few times. His face is very familiar. And the thing about Tim is every single time I learn something from him that makes my brain just go like, oh my God. And then I incorporate that into how I approach everything that is happening with today's GOP, which has nothing to do with the GOP conservatives of yesteryear. It has everything to do with Christo nationalism, Christo fascism, however you want to call it. And now also on the show, we'll be joining April Ajoy, who she was so in the thick of it that she was singing on the Jimmy Baker show. So, and she has a book called Star Spangled Jesus that I definitely want to talk to her about. So, they have a new show. Well, it's not a new show. It's an existing show, but it's going to be new to Lincoln Square Media. So you're going to be able to catch them there. And oh, there it is, the Tim and April show. But I am excited to be able to have them on Punching Up to introduce them to all of you. So without further ado, Tim, April.
Boom,
Hello.
we're in.
Oh,
Oh, that was fancy. It was like
That was
transition,
like boom,
transition,
boom.
transition. It was wonderful.
well, it was because we were just talking before this that we have not been raptured, or we have been raptured. I don't know. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. As of this recording, no rapture
No
yet.
rapture, but you never know. You never know.
Yeah. I will say the original prediction was September 23rd or 24th. So
Yeah.
And it can
still
vary,
out.
and it can vary like that. So you have rapture trauma, April, and I want to talk a little bit about that. But before we do, let's talk about your new show coming to Lincoln Square. So this is exciting. It's going to be Thursdays.
Yes.
Mhm.
So right now, the Tim and April show is produced by the New Evangelicals, an organization that I founded, and that's currently run by Melinda Hale. And we go live every Thursday on YouTube. And April and I started doing this actually back on the New Evangelicals podcast on Fridays, kind of just covering the news, but giving our perspective as two people who grew up in Christian nationalist spaces and as conservative evangelicals. And this segment got so popular, we made it its own thing entirely. So it goes live on Thursdays on YouTube at 12 o'clock Eastern. And now we're happy to announce it's coming to Lincoln Square Media as well on Substack. So you'll be able to catch the live stream just as live as we are on YouTube right here on Substack with Lincoln Square Media, as April and I try and help the audience understand what's happening from a Christian nationalist perspective and kind of the theology and the worldview and the very underground subculture of white evangelicalism that is so influential in our modern discourse, especially coming on the heels of Charlie Kirk's memorial service and just what's happening in the Trump administration. So that's our goal. We'll have a little bit of fun along the way. We'll laugh, we'll cry. We do a great segment called Weird Christian Shit, where we play a little video of just something just very weird and we just talk about it. So it's always a good time. And I'm really pumped to be coming to Lincoln Square Media.
Well, and there's a lot of weird going on right now, and I think it's important for people to understand that in the context of how we can actually change and help evolve some of these worldviews that are clearly very detrimental to our democracy. Now, April, in your book, Star Spangled Jesus, Leaving Christian Nationalism and Finding a True Faith, you talk about, so you had a song that you wrote
Yes.
called, and the song, correct me if I'm wrong, was called America Say Jesus.
You got it.
So
Yes.
how do you go from telling America on the Jim Baker show to say Jesus to doing the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very great question. I think one thing that makes Tim and I unique in this is I think we both are still Christian. So we still ascribe to the faith. And so it was kind of this long journey of realizing, a lot of the things that I believe and that I promote actually go against the teachings of Jesus. And there are a lot of things along the way. That's a long story in and of itself to how I realized it and changed. Um, but yeah, I think really just realizing the blatant hypocrisy that has co-opted a lot of American evangelicalism, especially in the rise of Trump. This is something that I've been calling out since Trump first came on the scene in 2015, as someone who was raised that character mattered in a politician as Christians. I grew up in the 90s when Bill Clinton was, had that whole scandal, and it was drilled in me. Republicans are the good Christians because we support men who are faithful to their wives. And if Bill Clinton would lie to his wife, how much worse would he do to the American people? And then suddenly when Trump comes on the scene, it was, oh, we're not voting for a pastor. We're voting for a president. And so it doesn't matter. And so that was very blatantly hypocritical to
Mhm.
me, as it is. And so I started pulling the string of like, okay, well, clearly they're wrong on Trump. He's not God's chosen. He's not this great Christian, holy family man. So what else have they taught me that is also wrong? And so I pulled that string, and that's why I very much call out Christian nationalism today. Tim and I both do.
So that's such a familiar thing, I think, to a lot of people, where that cognitive dissonance hits in, and the story that they've been told growing up suddenly just doesn't resonate, and they have a certain curiosity and they start to ask questions. Now, in evangelical churches, for people, then when they start to ask those questions, Tim, what happens to the question, like to a questioner? I don't even know. What do you call that when
Oh,
somebody questions?
someone who's curious, maybe, or someone who has questions, right? I mean, I think, look, it's we all have questions, and but the evangelical church knows that their youth and that their young adults are going to have questions. So, in my opinion, the scandal isn't you can't ask questions. You definitely can, but they have the answers predetermined for you, and so as long as you come to those answers, that's fine. But once you start asking, well, maybe there are other answers that are more compelling, then you become a problem, right? So, for example, it's fine to ask, what does the Bible say about gay people or about same-sex marriage? Oh, great question, right? Of course, the answer that they're going to give you is the Bible condemns it. But what if you got more curious and started coming to a different conclusion because maybe you read better scholarship on the topic, or maybe you realize that the logic isn't really sound with how they come to those conclusions? Well, then you're starting to go down a slippery slope. Then you're starting to give over into the world's logic, right? It becomes this very like, well, don't do that because then you're going to kind of go and you're going to lose your faith. The term slippery slope is used often in these spaces. And it's very painful when people get to a point in their faith where their questions are so loud that they have to follow the possible answers even beyond the boundaries that their church has given them. And a lot of times that ends up costing them their church, their faith community, their sense of security. But I would argue that the process, although painful initially, is so much more liberating once you go through it.
So the storytelling that is happening now on prime time, I'm not sure
Mhm.
what time it was televised, actually, the memorial, but
Yeah.
I know a lot of people saw that. And so a story is now being told to America that was told to you both throughout your youth. What was it like, April, watching? Did you watch the whole memorial, the Charlie Kirk memorial?
I watched a lot of it, and then I have since watched a lot of the clips that are going around. It's very triggering for me because being on this side of it, it's so easy for me to spot Christian nationalism now, and it's both infuriating
Mhm.
and kind of heartbreaking to know how many people are still just going to be reinforcing their ideas of what Christianity is. Because you see people saying, Charlie Kirk was a Christian martyr, and you see people conflating what Charlie Kirk said with, oh, he was just spreading the gospel. He was just, he died for his faith. He was only known for being a good Christian. And when you've conflated those two things and you see what he actually said, which was, he's very much against DEI. He said a lot of very overtly racist things. And very misogynistic things. And so now you're going to have a whole new group of people that have elevated this man as a martyr that are going to go back and watch his words that are very hateful and very unlike the teachings of Jesus, but they're going to now equate that with Christianity. And so now you have a new wave of Christian nationalism that is wrapped up in a conservative MAGA ideology, and they don't know better because their pastors are saying it. All the Christian leaders that are on that platform that say, you know, God this and God that and Jesus that, it's enough to make them think this is Christian. How great that the gospel is being spread. But what they don't know is it's actually been co-opted by a very white nationalist movement.
Well, authority bias is the other rhetorical trick that comes into play here. You know, you talked about the slippery slope earlier, Tim. Obviously, people look up to their pastors. I watched Erica Kirk's a little bit of her speech, and if I didn't know who Charlie Kirk was, if I was one of the people who that was the first thing I'd ever heard about him, I was like, yeah, wow,
Mhm.
this is beautiful. Wow, this wife is really going to carry on the work of her husband. This is touching. That is truly how I would come to it. And that to me is terrifying
Mhm.
because I
Mhm.
obviously know what he stands for. And I'm a visual learner. And so when you talk, April, about how they're sort of weaving in these ideologies, how you have what is truly Christian and then what is nationalism. I start to see it as like the best way to approach it is almost we have to be able to surf almost like a wave of understanding, meaning, oh, that part's Christian. Oh, now we're slipping into nationalism and Christian nationalism and fascism. And if in a way we can teach people how to ride that wave so that they can, I guess, spot it. I don't know if I'm describing that
Mhm. Like
very well.
decoding Christian nationalism in the
Yeah.
wild, like seeing it and being able to say this is nationalism and here's why, and here are the dog whistles of what is Christian nationalist versus what is Christ-like.
Yes, yes, that is what I want people to be able to do at the end of this show is to be able to spot when it slides into Christian nationalism. So you have a lot of experience with understanding Charlie Kirk's worldview, Tim. You actually spoke with Rob McCoy, who was his pastor, and I
Yeah.
was actually just reading in Raising Them Right, Kyle Spencer's book about Rob McCoy and that interaction where it really is truly, it wasn't about going to campuses to debate. It was about a Christian worldview being pushed onto the rest of the American public through the youth. Can you talk about Rob McCoy a little bit and how that, and I think you mentioned it on this week's show that you had as well that came out today. Can you talk about Rob McCoy and how that is not exactly Christian like?
Yeah. So, this is, I'll admit I'm kind of the odd person out when I say this, but in my opinion, Christian nationalism is still very much a Christian thing. It's just very antichrist in nature. And I say that because we have to realize that Christianity is not a monolith. It's a massive house with dozens of rooms and a basement. And so I say that because as a Christian, I don't want to absolve myself from the ugly parts of my faith. I feel an obligation to say, no, that's in our history. We have to deal with that. And that will help us better spot when those kinds of things come back up. Rob McCoy is Charlie Kirk's pastor, essentially. He's the person really responsible for shifting Kirk's perspective, because when Turning Point USA first started, it was very much a libertarian movement. If you look at some of Charlie's videos before COVID, it was pretty libertarian, conservative, kind of hands off on the culture war issues. But COVID and Rob McCoy were kind of the two things that I would say really radicalized Kirk to think about bringing his faith more into the public square. And so, yeah, I've met Rob McCoy several times. We've talked very cordially, but he is someone who it seems to me would be more on like the charismatic sect of Christianity, of Protestantism, the non-denominational side. Very big believer in the seven mountain mandate, this idea that believers like him have an obligation to take over the seven spheres of influence in society, with the government being kind of the biggest one. And he was the person that I would argue really, kind of convinced Charlie to start using Turning Point and his leverage to start pushing for a robust Christian faith that is inside the public square in a very radicalized way. It's not wrong for anyone to advocate for their beliefs in the public square. We all do this, right? There's nothing wrong with Christians advocating for their beliefs. We all do that. what makes Christian nationalism unique is that it is innately authoritarian, meaning it's not just about, hey, I want to think about what is good for all of my neighbors when it comes to maybe healthcare, for example. It's more about, hey, this is a Christian country that I am a part of, and I think that the nation's going the wrong way. And so I want to preserve the country to be just like me and stop all of my enemies by any means necessary, even if that includes embracing anti-democratic principles. So there's a big shift between what Christian nationalism advocates for and how it behaves compared to just, people who might be motivated by their religion to do good things for their neighbors while protecting their religious rights, their human rights, etc.
I think it's
Well,
important too to just point out that most people that are Christian nationalists don't think that they are. They think they're just being good Christians
Mm-hmm.
because of how it's taught as like, this is true Christianity. We want to
Right.
take America back for God because that's what God wants us to do, because that's what true Christians would do. Where when you're from the outside, it seems so obvious, like
Yep.
this is a power grab. But when you're in it, and I'm not talking about the people at the top, but
Right.
just like your average
The rank
churchgoer
and
that
file.
hears your average just Christian that maybe reads their Bible every once in a while, but goes to church every Sunday, your good old boy. Like they think that that's just what true Christianity is because it's what their pastors and their politicians and Fox News and Christian radio and Christian media all tell them.
Well, yeah, it's the difference
Yeah.
between intent, what people are intending to do, what people are just being, if you will. Like there's no ill intent. And I think that's to me the difference between Charlie Kirk being somebody who is out on the campuses to evangelize people versus somebody who is debating. I never felt that even though I think Ezra Klein said he is doing politics the right way,
I don't know why he wrote that article. I'm sorry. Like what? Anyway.
I really wanted to be like, blink twice, Ezra.
Yeah.
Is it okay? Are you in a basement somewhere?
Right. Like,
Who made you
has
write?
Trump threatened you? Like,
Probably, honestly, yeah. Want to
And
put it
here's
past
I
him.
think people have a hard time figuring out how to talk about Christianity and Christian nationalism for fear of offending people. What is a good way to approach that? Because it is cancel culture or accountability culture or censorship culture, whatever you want to call it. Nobody wants to offend Christians, and so I think there is this sort of tiptoeing around the conversation, and which is why I think, in a way, it's good that we had this ridiculously Christo-fascist display for everyone to see, because now we kind of have to talk about it.
yeah.
But how do we talk about it in a way that doesn't offend people who are the good Christians? I want to say nice.
I mean,
nice
look,
ones.
call me an old evangelical, but the truth might offend some people, but we have to tell the truth. I mean, it's just that simple to me. And this is kind of, I think, what makes our show unique is that as two former evangelical fundamentalists, we don't sugarcoat the reality of what's going on because we were raised in that world. Like we know ultimately the logic and the theology and the framework that is animating what we all just saw, at Kirk's memorial service and beyond. I mean, April and I have been doing this work for several years now. It's not like we woke up one day like yesterday and was like, oh, this is a problem. Like we've been calling this out for a long time. I mean, lest we forget, a Christian flag was paraded around the Senate chambers during the January 6th insurrection, and a prayer invoking the name of Jesus was given, thanking him for this opportunity. Okay. And so we believe in telling the truth, and we have the receipts. I mean, our show constantly plays clips often of the people who have very large platforms. They're not just these fringe names on TikTok that no one knows about. They are influencing our Secretary of Defense. They are speaking at Turning Point
Secretary of
America
War.
Fest. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Secretary of
Yeah,
War.
I was gonna say, get that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Trump, if you heard me,
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
good Christian.
Yeah, my bad. But and that's how we combat this. We tell the truth. We don't sugarcoat it. We don't minimize it, and we also be clear that this is complicated, right? Christianity, again, it's a big house. It's not monolithic, but we have to be truth tellers. And the truth of the matter is that for a long, long time, Christian nationalist ideals and people have been organizing, funded by billionaires, to do something like what we're seeing happen now. This is the mass immigration raids, the attack on our trans neighbors, the attack on truth, the insurrection, the way that Trump just says stuff the way he does and is weaponizing the government more and more. that does not come out of a vacuum. Okay,
Yeah,
Project
right.
2025 it didn't just happen one day. It's been in the works for a long time. So we have to tell the
So
truth.
So when I see the White House tweet out, and we can pull that tweet up again, when I see the White House tweet out that without borders, law and order, and religion, you don't have a country. This is coming from the White House account
Unbelievable.
just 2 days ago when this will actually air, and I look at that and I go, oh, and I think anybody might look at that and go, oh, it looks like we've already lost in that sense. That religion has taken hold, and we all know that they're not talking about all religions.
Right.
They're talking about a specific religion. When you see this coming out of the White House, what's your reaction?
Go ahead,
Honestly,
April.
okay. I mean, multiple things. Obviously, this is very
Start
Christian
ranting.
nationalist because
Yeah.
we know when they say religion, they mean mainly white evangelicalism, which is a very narrow interpretation of Christianity. But I gotta be honest, I think one reason that Trump is trying so hard to push this quote unquote Christian agenda, he started that task force to weed out anti-Christian bias a few months ago. He's done executive orders. He constantly talks about saving Christianity and pushing Christianity. To me, it seems like a last ditch effort for this Christian nationalist movement to take control. It's really scary because they are taking a lot of control right now. But to me, it's only because they've actually been losing a lot of this culture war. Like, yes, they're in power, they have positions of power, but the majority of the people, even some people that I would say voted for Trump, don't actually agree with this extreme Christian nationalism that they are trying to promote. So to me, I was just thinking about this the other day. You know how, like, when you were in high school, this is gonna stay with me. I have a point.
I will follow.
Yeah,
I'm following.
there were those kids that really weren't good at basketball, but they would always brag about, like, oh, I could beat you at horse. I could shoot. I just made like 10 threes in a row, and they just brag about how good they are at something, whether it's basketball or whatever. But they really weren't that good. Right. And the people that were actually good at the sport didn't go around bragging about it because they let their actions speak for themselves. I feel like that's the case when you have the Trump administration talking about Christianity. They have to talk about Christianity and they have to talk about Jesus and talk about religion because they're not actually good at following the teachings of Jesus. Because the
Mhm.
people that are actually following the teachings of Jesus don't have to tell you they are because their actions speak for it. So I think what we're seeing is an administration that is talking about religion with their lips. There's actually a verse for this. It says these people, they say my name with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. And that's what we're seeing. And it is a manipulation of Christianity for the sake of power. And I think they're only doing it because they know that pendulum is about to swing back.
I
It's
disagree, but
here,
that's my
here,
take. I
from your lips
disagree.
to God's ears. That's a perfect time to pull up an image. I don't know if you've seen it yet. It's a pastor in Chicago at the
Oh, I
Broadview.
saw this. Yeah.
Mm,
So as I hear you speak, April, this image came to mind because this is a pastor who is doing God's work, as it will, and trying to protect
mm.
the marginalized. And you have a militarized force pepper spraying him in the face. This photo is, when I
Yeah.
see it, it feels so very clear which side is good and which side is evil. Do you think
Yep.
now, and I think to your point, April, it's gotten so extreme that images like this will not just wake up people who have thought they were voting the right way, maybe, or who didn't realize that it was going to be this bad or that it was just talk. Do you think it's going to move even some people who were perhaps hardened to what this would look like, and they're now starting to see even a man of faith, a man of God, being pepper sprayed?
I mean, I think the problem is, though, most people who are in that world aren't seeing this. Fox News isn't talking about this. They're being taught, they're being shown a very like one-sided propagandist view of what's happening in our world right now. But and I don't know, Tim said he disagreed with me earlier, so I'm curious why he disagreed. But I do think that I've been saying this for a while. I think we're going to see a new wave of people that are going to quote unquote deconstruct from this because of how blatant a lot of this violence is getting. The problem is they have to see it. And I don't think a lot of them are actually seeing what's happening.
Yeah.
So, Tim, you disagreed earlier, so let's
Yeah.
hear it.
So, and, this is part of the show too sometimes, right? April and I see things a little bit differently, but it's always fun. And when I say this, I don't mean that this is permanent, but, Christian nationalists do not care that they're a minority. They just care about having the levers to power, and they do. There's just no way around it. I mean, they're in the Supreme Court. They own the Oval Office. They own Congress. They have Paula White has her own office inside of the White House. She invites her Christian nationalist friends to worship in the White House, and there's a real theology here underneath of it. Pete Hegseth is discipled by Doug Wilson, a man who believes that literally slavery wasn't that bad, and who believes that women's suffrage should be overturned. And so I am not nearly as confident that, this is them panicking. I think that this is frankly a victory lap. I mean, I think that even Trump's Kirk's memorial service was really a victory lap for Christian nationalists, saying revival is here. This is what we always wanted. Look, the government is now finally representing our values, kind of shtick. That doesn't mean that it will stay forever. And I do agree that I know most Americans, when they understand what Christian nationalism is and what they want, actually disagree with its value propositions. So I think that's why April and I are so passionate about reaching the widest audience possible, because mainstream media doesn't talk about this. I don't think a lot of people in progressive media really understand what Christian nationalism is. And I think once most people wake up to the reality of what is animating this White House, they go, wait a second, I didn't sign up for this stuff. I didn't sign up for this at all. It's like, yes, and it will only get much worse if we don't get them out. It's not about saying you have to be liberal. Okay. I mean, Mitt Romney's a conservative, right? And he fully opposes this stuff. Adam Kinzinger, a conservative, opposes this stuff. So it's a much bigger conversation than just the right-left paradigm. But we have to wake the average American up to what's actually happening and how this is only the beginning for these people. It will only get much worse from here. It will not get better.
I just want to say, sorry. Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
Tim disagreed. So I think we're kind of agreeing, but just remember when that happened, Trump's approval ratings are lower than they've ever been, historically speaking. So part of me is think of the way they blew up that memorial. When has that ever happened for anybody in the history of our country?
I know. I was thinking about that. I can't.
In a way, so I think you're both right in this sense that it was this victory lap where they're like, okay, here's where we're actually going to merge these two movements, right? This is where we're going to merge the fascist nationalistic movement with Christianity. We're going to put it all together in a UFC style event, and we're going to brand it a memorial. But was it really? It was a fundraiser. It was a revival event. All of those things. And at the same time, they overplayed their hand, because anybody who saw the pyrotechnics go up on stage and asked themselves, wait, what is this? Is there a memorial? What is happening here? Is this a concert? And so I think it's going to do both of those things. But also, I have a question about just because we know Democrats have a young white male problem. And authoritarianism is it puts the man in charge. And so you have all of these young boys who are pulled into UFC, pulled into these algorithms of self-improvement. And they're watching Erica Kirk get up on stage and say the man's job, the husband, is to lead. And that sounds like it's pretty attractive. And aligns with what some of these disenfranchised young white men are thinking about these days. And so that kind of makes me go, so you guys have escaped, Christian nationalism, but at the same time, Tim, they're recruiting people in. They're pulling people in with these vibes.
Well, I mean, frankly, and I don't want to get you in trouble on your show, but the Democratic Party has a lot of issues right now. I mean, a lot, and they have no answer. They have no compelling answer. They're not unified. They don't understand how to utilize social media. We don't need a Joe Rogan of the left. We need actual institutional organizational structures to get this stuff out there, right? Because you look at how right-wing media is so effective in what they do on social media. I mean, there's no left-wing equivalent of Rumble. It's you just have Rumble. That's it. There's nothing on the other side that's that is structured as an organizational institution to house people's content, right? For example. So I think that, yes, I mean, there is an issue with messaging. I think that a lot of young white men who are living under late stage capitalism and are sold this patriarchal view, which, by the way, very much hurts them, that everything is on their shoulders. The world's on their shoulders. They have to provide for a family in a society where you can't find a job with livable wages, where we don't have guaranteed affordable health care, right? Somehow the ideal for them is to find a job where they can provide for themselves, a wife, maybe 3 kids, and also have enough time and energy to spend time with that family on top of working their ass off to try and make it work in this society. Like the dream is really a lie, right? And so I agree with you. There's definitely an issue, and I understand as a man why to people who are like me, that messaging can be attractive about join an adventure. There's a battle to fight. I get that, but we absolutely have to think about better ways to just engage, I think, just white men in general and lead them to places that are fully themselves, where they can be themselves, but also themselves as a healthy version of masculinity, right? That advocates for the marginalized and uses their ability and their own privilege to be that kind of light, And there's definitely a way to do that. But I honestly have no faith at this point in the Democratic Party for a lot of reasons. I think we got to start carving some different paths going forward, frankly.
Well, April, you and I were about solutions. We want to come up with solutions. So maybe we use this last minute or two to brainstorm ideas and solutions. I'm thinking, is there like a Christian Nationalist Anonymous or something type of where is that what your show will be, where people can come together and talk in the comments about their path out? Help.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the main reasons we wanted to start this show too, because Christian nationalism has become such a prevalent problem. And I think, at least for me, like one thing I did with my book and I try to do on the show is to talk to people that are in it, but instead of pointing at them and saying, look how wrong you are for believing this, I try to hold up a mirror by telling my story, right?
Mhm.
Of like, I believed this and I was wrong. And here's how I was wrong and how it was harmful. And what scripture and what like teaching of Jesus actually was what made me realize I was wrong about that. Because I do think in this case, we have to fight fire with fire, right? Like they have the Bible, they use scripture out of context. We also have the Bible, and there are a lot of verses that counteract every single policy position that they have. And I think it's not, they don't have a monopoly on Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
despite them believing that. And so it's using our own story of where we were, how, and we could speak the language. And I think that is something that they don't have. Most of them have not been on the left before, but we have been where they were before. I know every single argument that they have because I used to use that argument. I know all the mental gymnastics that they have to think to justify kicking immigrants out while following a Jesus that said, I was a stranger and you did not welcome me. And what you do to the least of these, you do to me. I know those mental gymnastics because I once had them. And so it's just being able to kind of also humanize them. Like we have a very strong, like no dehumanization policy on our show because we are all human at the end of the day. And some of us are more indoctrinated than other people. Some of us have been set free from certain fundamentalist thinking. Other people have not. And it's just trying to realize there's a way out of this. This is not going to last forever. And I have heard from a lot of people that watched our show or read my book or whatever that were Christian nationalists in some way and realized from hearing us talk the nationalism that had co-opted their own faith, and then they've now left that behind.
Okay, so it is like
It is
Christian
possible.
Nationalist. It is Christian Nationalist Anonymous. It is. That's a book that you could.
That's a book.
Tim,
There we
Tim,
go.
I don't know if you get a book in you. This could be a
I'm
book.
on it.
Well, it's been fantastic talking to both of you. I feel like we are in such a critical moment because we have the nation's attention right now, and we know how quickly the attention can shift to something else. And so I feel like it's great that your show is launching on the Lincoln Square Substack this week because at least I think by Thursday, people will still be talking about Christian nationalism. So I will be sure to tune in, and everybody watching, make sure to tune in as well. And it'll still also be on your YouTube
and
as well.
podcasts. Yep.
and podcast.
Yep.
Excellent. And where on social media can people find you so they can follow you, April?
I am at April Ajoy, Ajoy, pretty much everywhere. Substack, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Facebook, all the places.
All the places. Follow her in all the places. And
Yeah.
Tim, where are you at?
I am at Tim Whitaker Speaks on Substack, Instagram, mostly are my two main platforms. Of course, the show with April. And I also am the founder of the New Evangelicals, which is also on Substack and on social media. And that's a place designed for folks who want to find a better path forward in their faith. They can join our free community, the newevangelicals.com/connect. It's a great space. It's totally free. We're a nonprofit. And we do a lot of content, educational resources, regional group chats, and everything. So it's really worth checking out.
All right. Well, thank you both for the work that you're doing. It truly is the Lord's work. So I am grateful for it because I don't speak the language. I don't know that I'd be like Trump when they asked him his favorite Bible verse. I would just be like, well, it's a personal thing.
It's in the Bible somewhere, you know.
Yeah.
It's John. Is that a book? Is John a book?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So thanks so much. Come back anytime, and I look forward to watching your show.
Yeah,
Thanks,
we're
Maya.
excited to join everyone
Yeah,
at Lincoln
super
Square.
pumped.
So
All right. Take care, guys. All right. So you have more content to watch, which I think it's really important. I know there's a lot of content out there right now, but to me, it's the information that helps us move forward, that helps us have a better understanding of the world in which we're in. And we are in a world in which the White House is tweeting out crazy things about religion, meaning only one specific religion. So Christian nationalism is here. And if it's here to stay is really a question of whether or not we're going to do the work to help inform people about what's actually going on. And that Project 2025 is, I think, somewhere around 70% implemented, and they're not going to like the last 30% of it. So even if people thought that they were safe and okay from everything that's going on right now because they're not part of a marginalized community, let me tell you, this authoritarianism and fascism and Christian nationalism is coming for everyone's rights eventually. So we still have an opportunity to stop it. I know I'm going to do everything that I can do. And so I hope you do everything that you can do as well. And I know you are, because you're watching the show and you watch Lincoln Square media shows, and you will be watching Tim and April's show. So until then, have a great week, and I'll see you next Wednesday.